Deep inside the German Federal Archives, hidden among thousands of routine military reports, there is one document that does not belong. It is not an official report. It is not a field dispatch. It is a blood-stained diary, recovered in 1952 from a collapsed bunker in the Carpathian Mountains. The author was Oberleutnant Kurt Schreiber, an elite mountain warfare officer, a veteran who had seen death in every form imaginable. But his final entries, written in September 1944 with a trembling hand, read less like the notes of a trained German officer and more like the ravings of a man losing his mind. Forensic experts had to reconstruct the text letter by letter, and what they found made them shudder. This is not war. This is an apocalypse. They emerge from the fog like condensed night itself. My men, veterans of Crete and the Caucasus, are panicking. Russian soldiers scream "Ura" when they attack. These remain silent. I hear no human voices, only heavy breathing, the crunch of bones, and the wet impact of metal on flesh. My best machine gunner, Erich, went mad an hour ago. He threw down his MG-42 and started shooting at them with his pistol, screaming that they were corpses risen from the Carpathian swamps. I saw it myself. Bullets hit them, tearing chunks of flesh away. But they do not fall. They do not even slow down. They just keep climbing up the slope, straight into our gun barrels. So who were these demons? Who made the Wehrmacht's elite believe in the supernatural? The truth is far more disturbing than any ghost story. This is the legend of the Black Battalion, Penal Company Z, men the state had already buried alive, who chose to claw their way back from hell itself. Autumn 1943, Northern Ural Mountains, corrective labor camp, strict regime, Facility 34 LAZ-9, a place where geography ended and pure survival began. The air was so damp and thin, it felt solid, scraping the lungs with every breath and leaving a metallic taste of rust and decay. This was not just a prison. It was a closed ecosystem powered by one fuel, human bodies, and ruled by one law. You die today, I die tomorrow. At the top sat the Vori Vizakone, the thieves-in-law, criminal aristocracy, men who despised authority and lived by their own brutal code. Everyone else were mujiks, political prisoners, Article 58, expendable material, dust under boots. Then, on a gray September day, the rhythm of death broke. 3 black government Zim cars rolled through the gates, a sight so rare it felt unreal. Officers stepped out in perfectly pressed blue coats with crimson collar tabs. NKVD from Moscow. Even the camp administration, men who normally ruled like gods, suddenly moved like nervous servants. 3,000 prisoners were assembled on the parade ground, a sea of emaciated faces. Political intellectuals with dead eyes huddled together. But the main mass were repeat offenders, murderers, robbers, men with broken bodies covered in blue tattoos, domes, stars, rings, the insignia of their hierarchy. They stood in silence, staring at the Moscow visitors with heavy defiance. A senior officer climbed onto a makeshift platform. Major Frolov, State Security, a man without age, a face smooth and expressionless, eyes containing nothing but state function. He spoke quietly, but in the frozen silence his words struck like a whip. Citizens convicts. The war demands the exertion of all forces. The motherland calls everyone, wherever they may be, to fulfill their duty. A ripple passed through the criminals, mockery, contempt. For them, motherland was propaganda. Their motherland was prison. Their constitution was the thieves' code, which forbade cooperation with authority. Frolov did not react. The Supreme Soviet offers you a unique opportunity, he continued, to redeem your guilt with blood. We are recruiting volunteers for special assault battalions to perform tasks on the most dangerous sectors of the front. Term of service, until first wound, or until completion of combat mission. Those who survive will receive complete expungement of criminal records, clean passports, and freedom. Freedom, a word long erased here, dangerous even to imagine. But in some eyes, something flickered, not hope, something colder. The instinct of a gambler seeing a crack in the cage door. "We need 500 men," Frolov said. "Only repeat offenders, serious articles, those who have nothing to lose here except rations and bunks. 500 bayonets, one mission. Step forward. Who is ready?" Silence. To step forward meant breaking the thieves' law. Zapadlo. Betrayal. All eyes turned to the center of the formation. A short, stocky man stood there, face scarred like plowed earth, furs, thief-in-law, overseer of the zone. The real power behind the wire. He removed his hand-rolled cigarette, spat onto the white snow, and smirked. That spit was the zone's answer to Moscow, but Major Frolov was prepared. "I understand your doubts," he said. "You live by your own laws, but your laws end where the barbed wire begins. And war is a place where there are no laws at all, except one, kill or die. Your life here is worth nothing. It will end in an unmarked pit. We offer a chance, 1 in 1,000, but a chance. Decide." Then the formation wavered. From the mujiks, a man stepped forward. Ivan Markov, camp nickname, Granite, former GRU captain, professional saboteur, hero of the Finnish War, convicted in 1941 on a fabricated case, 15 years, a lone wolf, respected, feared. His step forward hit the parade ground like thunder. "I'm going," he said. "What's the mission?" "Take a height that regular units haven't been able to take for 6 months, Frolov answered. "Refusal, execution. Cowardice, execution. Failure, execution of every 10th man. For victory, freedom." "Clear," Markov said. And the dam broke. One by one, men stepped forward. By evening, exactly 500 stood in the snow. 500 condemned men, and their hunt for redemption had begun. The battalion reached the front and learned the truth quickly. No one welcomed them as soldiers. They were avoided like disease, given the worst rations, the worst gear. "Dead men don't need food," a quartermaster sneered when Markov demanded provisions. Markov answered without words. He grabbed the quartermaster by the chest and lifted him off the ground until the man's face turned blue. The rations arrived within an hour. Then, 2 days later, the war tested them. At night, a German reconnaissance group slipped through a gap between regiments and cut down a medical platoon in the rear. Quiet, fast, professional. When the news reached Colonel Zeman, he didn't call in regular infantry. He sent Markov. "Find them and destroy them," Zeman ordered. "No prisoners." Markov took 20 men, the hardest he could trust. Among them was old Luka, the limping convict who could read tracks better than any dog. They moved without talk, without lanterns, following faint signs through wet forest. Luka crouched over trampled moss, snapped twigs, a smear of mud on bark. "They went this way," he whispered. 10 of them, moving confident, coming back the same route. Markov chose a narrow ravine, a throat of rock and trees the Germans would have to pass through on the return. He placed his men like shadows, close, silent, ready. "Do not shoot," he told them. "Work quietly. Wait for my command." Dawn came cold and gray. The Germans appeared in the fog, 10 men in camouflage, moving like hunters who believed they were untouchable. They were used to fighting soldiers. They did not know what waited in this ravine. Markov killed the point man first, a thrown blade, clean and final. That was the signal. 20 figures in dirty coats slid down the ravine walls. No gunfire, no shouting, only the dull impact of shovels, the wet sound of knives, the choking gasp of a man who understood too late. The convicts didn't just kill. They tore the enemy apart with the fury of men who had been starving for years, for bread, for air, for freedom. Old Luka, despite his limp, dragged a German to the ground and strangled him with bare hands. staring into his eyes with terrifying calm. 2 minutes. That was all it took. When it ended, the bottom of the ravine was red. Markov looked at his men. In their eyes, something had changed. The Germans were no longer monsters. They were mortal. "Collect weapons and documents," Markov said. "We're leaving." When they dumped the trophies before Siemens' bunker, the colonel stepped outside, lit a cigarette, and stared at the blood-darkened shovels. "You work brutally," he muttered. Then he looked at Markov. "But the height is different." "There," Siemens said, "a battalion of killers is waiting for you." After the successful ambush in the ravine, division headquarters finally understood what they had been given. Not heroes, not soldiers, a weapon. Colonel Siemens summoned Markov the next morning. He did not offer praise. "You are a resource," he said. "Meat, and I need you to plug a hole I haven't been able to close for 6 months." He spread a map across the table. Height 1,214. The black one. A mountain dominating the only road through the valley. German mountain troops from Edelweiss sat there behind concrete, mines, and 3 defensive lines. 2 full regiments had already died trying to take it. Artillery was useless, aviation grounded by weather. "You have 1 week, Siemens said. "Weapons, whatever you find. 3 magazines per man, 2 grenades, shovels, without limit." Markov studied the map in silence. "This is a death sentence," he said. "You already died in the camp," Siemens replied. "Now you have a chance to resurrect." Markov returned to the battalion and delivered the plan. They would not attack from the front. They would climb the southern cliff, a near vertical wall 70 meters high. The Germans considered it impassable. There were no minefields, only scattered observation posts. The attack would begin at night, in a storm. The rain would cover the sound. The battalion froze. Even hardened criminals went quiet. That night, Furs made his move. He gathered his men by the fire and whispered betrayal. "When the attack starts, we disappear into the forest. Let granite die up there. We'll live free." By morning, the battalion had split. 300 stayed with Markov. 200 followed Furs. Old Luka warned him, "They'll leave you to die." Markov knew. But killing Furs before the assault would destroy what little unity remained. The storm came on schedule. Rain fell in sheets. Wind howled through the gorges. 30 men tied into ropes approached the cliff. Mud smeared their faces. In their hands, knives and shovels. "Silent," Markov said. "If you fall without sound." The climb began. Hands slipped, nails tore, bodies pressed into whetstone. 1 man fell. He did not scream. At the summit, Markov killed the first sentry without a sound. The others followed. They poured into the trenches like shadows. No gunfire, no shouting, only choking breaths, crushed skulls, and steel-cutting flesh. In 10 minutes, the first defensive line was gone. Markov fired a green flare. No one came. Below, Furs had led his men into the forest. German machine guns opened fire. At the base of the mountain, panic spread, until Lieutenant Lebedev stood up under bullets and screamed for the battalion to follow him. 300 men charged uphill screaming, "Ura!" Lebedev died throwing grenades into a bunker. By dawn, height 1,214 was taken. Of 500 men, 150 remained. Victory brought no freedom. Siemens gave Markov a new order. "Find the deserters. Kill them all." The hunt began. Markov led the detachment into the Carpathian forest, like a gang leader, not an officer. They moved without commands, communicating with gestures, spreading through the trees like predators. Old Luka read the ground effortlessly. Broken branches, trampled moss, dropped bandages. "They're moving heavy," he whispered. "Loot, wounded. They think we won't follow." Markov knew Furs well. Pride would destroy him. He wouldn't flee deep into the mountains empty-handed. He would head for the pass called Wolf's Jaw, a narrow gorge leading toward rich villages and safe routes south. Markov cut him off. They marched through icy streams and goat trails without rest. reaching the gorge before the deserters. Machine guns were placed at the exit. Shooters climbed the slopes. The rest hid among rocks at the entrance. They waited. At dawn, Furs' column entered the gorge confidently. Some wore German coats. Some dragged carts filled with stolen goods. Furs rode in the center on a captured horse, dressed like a king. When the last man entered the gorge, Markov fired. The bullet killed the horse beneath Furs. The trap closed. Crossfire tore through the column. Panic erupted. Men ran into stone walls of bullets. Others fell screaming into the mud. Furs' gang fought back viciously, throwing grenades and firing wildly from behind carts. Markov ordered the descent. In the gorge, former comrades killed each other with knives, rifle butts, and bare hands. There were no prisoners. Markov found Furs wounded against a rock, empty gun in hand. They faced each other in silence. Furs attacked with a knife. Markov answered with a shovel. The first blow took the hand. The second ended everything. According to conscience, Markov said, by noon, the gorge was silent. 30 more men were gone. They returned to height 1,214 carrying their dead. This time they were not met by machine guns. They were met by music. Colonel Zimin read the pardon order aloud. Criminal records expunged, rights restored. Men who had survived hell wept openly. They were free, but no longer whole. Most chose to stay in the army. War was the only place they fit. Markov continued fighting until victory. He rose to colonel. Never married, never spoke of the battalion. Once a year, he locked his door, poured vodka, covered it with bread, and placed a battered sapper's shovel on the desk. Old Luca went home, built a house, kept bees, died peacefully. Most of the others were broken by peace. Some drank themselves to death. Some returned to prison. History almost forgot them, until researchers understood who those silent attackers were. Not demons, not ghosts, just men with nothing left to lose, who chose to prove they were alive. This was the Black Battalion,